All righty. So today, Professor Greteman is going to be talking with us. Greteman graduated with a BA in English from Oklahoma State University, where he was the school's first Rhodes Scholar. He then earned a Master's Philosophy from Oxford University in 2000 and a PhD from the University of California, Berkeley in 2008. He is the author of a 2013 book titled The Poetics and Politics of Youth in Milton's England, and a 2021 book titled Shakespeare's Social Network, Influence, Agency, and Revolutionary Change. The latter book is based on a digital humanities project that refined catalog entries of nearly 500,000 books, turned them into a database, and converted that database into a network of around 50,000 people, creating a new way of looking at literary history. Professor Greteman is currently the chair of the Department of English at the University of Iowa. So thank you for joining us today, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you all for first of all, for inviting me to come and talk to you about the English department, and I'll introduce myself a little bit too, but I really appreciate the invitation and the curiosity, and so I will give you a little bit of an overview of, some of my work, and then move on to the department so I can outline a little bit about what's unique about it, or different about it compared to other English departments around the country. And then pretty quickly, I'd love to just get into some of your questions about us, things that you'd like to know about our students or our faculty needs, really just anything like that, because I'm happy to answer those questions, and like I said, I'm just very pleased to be asked. So let me see if I can share my screen here, and I'll walk through a little bit of PowerPoint here. So, um, as was as Maddie already said, I'm the chair of the Department of English here at Iowa. As you all probably know as well as anyone, Iowa has really leaned in to the identity of being the writing university, and we're the first UNESCO City of Literature in the United States. We have the Writers' Workshop here, which is the oldest um, Master's Fine Arts program in the country, and probably the most prestigious. In our own department, we have a nonfiction writing program that's the top ranked one in the country. And there are other things here, like the international writers program that brings, 30 writers from all over the world to campus in the fall each year. And so the university has really sort of leaned in to that identity and that branding, and the English department has, we really like to think of ourselves as the sort of center of that hub, or hub of the writing university. So that's why I put this picture up, which is this is what you see if you walk over to EPB and walk up the the main stairwell these days. Kind of the hub, because we have a lot of the faculty and students who touch all of those other programs. And if you look back historically at us, we're also the place where a lot of them originated from. So the Writers' Workshop, for example, was in EPB up until I think the early 80s or something, when they moved over to their new facility. And they operate more or less as an independent unit from us now, but we still share a lot of interests and history together. So it's been a fun department to be chair of. Um, just real quickly, I don't know, I sort of forget sometimes that when you're showing these kind of slides on Zoom, um, they maybe don't look, they're maybe a little less readable. Here, let me try to, I'll do it this way, make them a little bit more readable. So I by training am a Renaissance scholar, and so I've written these two books on early modern England. The first one is really a sort of history of humanist education and childhood, and the way that um, that childhood and the kind of boundaries between childhood and adulthood are really important in developing notions of government by consent and the role that humanist education plays in the process of that development. The second book, Networking Print, is is all about thinking about the ways that the kind of expanded and expanding networks of co-authorship and co-production, so the way booksellers and printers and publishers are linked, um, influences the transmission of information in Shakespeare's England. And that's my most recent one. I have between Oxford and Berkeley, I worked as a journalist in London for Time magazine, and I still write for a lot of different journalistic publications. So I put one down here from the London Review of Books that I wrote during the last Iowa caucuses, where I sort of did an essay on my experiences going to the first caucus. I just talked to them about doing a kind of a re-up of this. I'm going to go to the caucuses on Monday night. I'm super curious. I mean, it was a weird experience, and I can only imagine that that the Republican caucuses this year will be, if anything, an even stranger experience for a non-Iowan and in my case a non-Republican like me. So I'm going to go to those on Monday night and write another what will I'm hoping be a funny and interesting column for the London Review of Books next week. Um, okay, let me get on. It's enough about me. I'll show you a little bit about the English department. Um, this slide deck, by the way, a lot of it is adapted from something that I presented to the Dean's Advisory Council earlier in the semester, because I was interested in showing them what's distinctive and interesting about our department and exciting about it, especially in the current environment. As you so as you all know, there is a lot, you can pick up a magazine like the New Yorker or a newspaper like the New York Times in any given week, just about, and find some story in there about the decline of the humanities or the decline of English departments in particular. And so when I'm talking about our department, I sometimes open with this graph and tell people, we don't usually think about flatlining as being a good thing. But in our department's case, if you go back to 2013 and take the past 10 years and look at our number of majors, it looks like this, which is basically a flat line. And in the context of the humanities now, that is actually profoundly exciting. And there's some kind of interesting things behind it that go to the core of who we are as a department. It's actually not quite a flat line, by the way. We're up now at about 915 majors, which I think is actually the biggest we've ever been. So we've been growing over the past 3 to 5 years, even in relation to historical terms, where we've always been a pretty big department. Now, again, okay, so if you want to know why that's exciting, here's English degrees nationwide from 2012 to 2021. They've dropped from about 55,000 to around 35,000. So there are just fewer students nationwide who are choosing the English degree. A lot of them, following the kind of rhetoric of, university as career training, have shifted into disciplines like nursing programs and health sciences programs. So that's the kind of trend that we've been bucking. If you look at our peer comparisons, it's even more striking to see that we still have the sort of size of major that we have. University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, which is historically a great department. It's a place that I really think of as a peer department in a lot of ways. Um, but when you look at what's happened in their enrollments between 2009 and 2022, and these were the available numbers I was able to pull. It's really collapsed. They've gone from 509 majors to 118. If you look at University of Michigan, which is interestingly comparable to us too, because I mean, again, much bigger university than we are, really historically great English department. It's even more comparable because it has English and creative writing in the same major. But they've gone from 590 majors to 214. So to kind of get underneath the hood of what's going on in that flat line, I don't know for sure if you can see my cursor, but I'm I'm pointing to the point at about 2015 here, where you start to see a blue line and an orange line. And what you can see is in the few years before that, actually our majors had started to drop pretty significantly. We went from about 900 to 800. And this was when I was the director of undergrad studies in the department. And we were, again, this story of English losing majors is a story that's been going on for a long time. And so we were really tracking it then. Actually, I was writing about it quite a bit in some of the sorts of places that I write, like the New Republic and London Review of Books, too. And we saw it starting to happen in Iowa. And around 2014, we started to do some really intense discussions as a faculty about what we could do to resist that at Iowa. This was a time before we had a creative writing major. Um, we had a very small selective creative writing track, but we didn't have a creative writing major, and we really didn't have any creative writing faculty on staff either. We had one person named Robin Schiff, who's an excellent poet, um, and she was it. And so there was a lot of concern about whether we even could responsibly offer a creative writing major, what it would look like, if it would make if it would actually weaken our profile. There was some concern that maybe if you started a creative writing major, the students wouldn't be as strong. They might be less serious because they just want to come in and write about their feelings or something like that. And so we spent a lot of time talking about how we could do it and how we could do it responsibly. And we came up with a really, I think, for the time and really even now, a really innovative program that really unified the study of reading and the practice of writing around the kind of theory that to be an excellent writer, you needed to be an excellent reader. And so we integrated that into all the classes that we offered in our new curriculum, in our new major. And we launched that in 2015. And so the kind of story behind the top line, the black line, is our combined English and creative writing majors. And what you see is the blue line, which is going down, is our English majors. And now they're at about 200, which is still actually not bad. If you compare us to Illinois and Michigan, that still makes us one of the biggest conventional English departments in the country. But this orange line that's just gone up and up and up is the creative writing major. Some of that is people who flowed over from the English major into the creative writing major. You could see that happening, 2016, 2017. But the bigger picture, especially in the past 3 or 4 years, is actually that we're just getting students from all over the country who are coming here specifically to study English and creative writing. And it's really brought a lot of distinction to our program. Last year, we surpassed Harvard and Princeton in U.S. News and World Report rankings, so that we're the top public university in the country for writing across the disciplines. We're tied with Yale in that. Um, our faculty have been increasingly winning prestigious grants and awards like the Guggenheim. We had a faculty who won an NEH grant last year um, to do to work with material history and book studies and NEA fellowship. Just in the last year, faculty have 8 books published or in press, and a lot of those now are creative writing books. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? Well, with the kind of rise in our rankings, I'll go back to that concern I was telling you about when we were initially forming the major, that maybe we would get less serious students. What we found is really the opposite of that. Iowa used to be a department that primarily drew students from in-state who came here because we were the local school, or students from the Chicago suburbs who came here because we were about as close as Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Sometimes they couldn't get into Champaign-Urbana and they could get in here. We still get some of those students, but increasingly our profile really is national. We have students who are coming from all over the country. We're increasingly a top choice school, and often the kind of schools that we're in competition with when students are considering whether to come here or go somewhere else, they're looking at places like Brown and Brown, um, Berkeley, Iowa. So we're far from it giving us a kind of less qualified student. What we've found is that our students, seem to just be getting better and better. Um, I'll put one or two more slides on here, and then I'll show you some faculty, and then we'll go to I'll open it up for Q&A. So creative writing is something we're really, really known for. Something that I think that we also do a lot of, and are in the libraries a lot doing, is we have a real strength in book studies. So one of the grants, that NEH grant that I was telling you about, was to form book labs and give students opportunities to do hands-on work, learning how to do printing and bookmaking. We have a lot of faculty who are jointly appointed with the Center for the Book, which is over in North Hall. And so they formed some book labs. This is pictures from some of the work that they were doing, designing their own prints. That interest brings us over to the library a lot too. I think English faculty are very heavy users of special collections as a teaching resource. And I think that's one of the things that, to me, is actually pretty distinctive about the English department. It's when I was an undergraduate, I never stepped foot in a special collections. It's partly because we have so many faculty who are interested and involved in that kind of work. It's also partly because the ethos of special collections in the University of Iowa libraries is so open and so engaged with the teaching mission, frankly, and that's also pretty unusual. Our alumni are doing amazing things. Again, this was in the week that I was making this presentation in the fall to the Dean's Advisory Council. Shane McCrae, who's one of our alumni, had just published a memoir, Pulling the Chariot of the Sun, that was profiled in the New York Times. Joe Russo had just been nominated, I think, or had just won an Academy Award for producing Everything Everywhere All at Once. He's one of our alumni. And Nathan Hill had just published Wellness, which had been picked that week as one of Oprah's book club books. And he was coming in town for the book festival too. So our alumni are doing amazing things. Something I've been really working on a lot is reconnecting them with the department and just profiling them in the building. If you walk over to EPB, we're starting to, put some posters and art up that shows you that we have alumni who are Academy Award winners and who are Pulitzer winners and things like that. But traditionally, I don't know if it's a Midwestern thing or what, but we've we've kind of hid that or not acknowledged it. And you can walk over to EPB and you would not know that our alumni are doing pretty amazing things. Um, let's see. I'll show you one more thing. This is probably not of huge concern to the library staff, but it's something you should know. Because we have so many students and because our hiring hasn't really kept up with the retirements, um, we do have a really our student to faculty ratio is higher than we would like it to be. So if you can, on the chart on the left, you can see, go back to 2014, we had about 40 faculty and 880 students. We're now down to 34 faculty and 915 students. So that means our student to faculty ratio is 1 to 27. If you compare that to a lot of our Big Ten peers, that's more than double what any of them are. And so this is something that we'd really like to work on. We're really proud that we can still give our students opportunities like coming over to work in special collections, even though we have that really big faculty to student ratio, but it does present some real challenges for us. And that's probably worth knowing if you're in the library, because I do think it impacts sometimes our ability to do some of the kind of training and shepherding of students through the research process, for example, that we would really like to be able to do. Um, Final slide. This is just a picture of most of our faculty and some of their books. I guess the final thing to know about English is, we're very much a book discipline. And so that means that all of our faculty are active writers and researchers, whether they're doing critical work or whether they're doing creative work. These are all the sort of most recent books, I think, from faculty that I was able to gather. And so we're really proud of that. We are always available to talk about our work. I think if you, as you all know, academics love to talk about their work and their books, partly because almost nobody ever asks them. So I'm sure that many other people in the English department would be more than willing to come over and talk to library staff anytime about what we're working on. So that's the big overview. I think with that, I would just love to hear more about your questions about the department.
All right, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording really quick before we get into Q&A.